Hello friends, my name is Dr. Jigisha Singh and in this video I'm going to discuss about what agreements are contracts. Well, in this video I'm just mentioning the Bear Acts as it is. They are provided under the Bear Act, and even the exceptions need to be further looked into, and the restrictions, their explanations, exceptions must be looked into, because I have not mentioned the same in this video. I have just mentioned the basic provisions which are there for the relevant sections. Well, what agreements are contracts? This is provided under Section 10 of the Indian Contract Act, which says that all agreements are contracts if they are made by free consent of the parties competent to contract for a lawful consideration and with a lawful object, and not hereby expressly declared to be void. Well, for a free consent of parties, sections 14 and 13. For competent to contract, relevant sections are 11, 12, and 68. For a lawful consideration and with the lawful object, relevant section is 23, and not hereby expressly declared to be void, relevant section. There are some instances provided under the Indian Contract Act under section 24 to 30. As far as free consent is concerned, section before we look forward to defining free consent, we should look into the definition of consent as provided under the Indian Contract Act under section 13, which says that it says two or more persons are said to consent when they have agreed upon the same thing in the same sense, that is, there is consensus at item. Section 14 talks about free consent. It says that a consent is said to be free when it is not caused by coercion as defined under section 15 of the Indian Contract Act, undue influence as defined under section 16, fraud as defined under section 17, misrepresentation as defined under section 18, and mistake subject to the provisions of section 20, 21, and 22. Under section 15, coercion is defined as coercion is the committing or threatening to commit any act forbidden by the Indian Penal Code 45 of 1860, or the unlawful detaining or threatening to detain any property to the prejudice of any person whatever, with an intention of causing any person to enter into agreement. Under section 16, undue influence is defined as subsection 1. A contract is said to be induced by undue influence where the relations subsisting between the parties are such that one of the parties is in a position to dominate the will of another and uses that position to obtain an unfair advantage over the other. Subsection 2 talks about, in particular and without prejudice to the generality of the foregoing principle, a person is deemed to be in a position to dominate the will of another. Clause A, when he holds a real and an apparent authority over the other, or where he stands in a fiduciary relation to the other, or Clause B, where he makes a contract with the person whose mental capacity is temporarily or permanently affected by reason of age, illness, or mental or bodily distress. Subsection 3, where a person who is in a position to dominate the will of another enters into a contract with him and the transaction appears on the face of it or on the evidence adduced to be unconscionable, the burden of proving that such contract was not induced by undue influence shall be upon the person in a position to dominate the will of the other. Fraud is defined under section 17, which says that fraud means and includes any of the following acts committed by a party to a contract or with his connivance or his agent with the intent to deceive another party thereto or his agent or to induce him to enter into the contract. Subsection 1, the suggestion as a fact of that which is not true by one who does not believe it to be true. Subsection 2, the active concealment of a fact by one having knowledge or belief of the fact. Subsection 3, a promise made without any intention of performing it. Subsection 4, any other act fitted to deceive. Subsection 5, any such act or omission as the law specially declares to be fraudulent. Section 18 defines misrepresentation. It states that misrepresentation means and includes subsection 1, the positive assertion in a manner not warranted by the information of the person making it of that which is not true, though he believes it to be true. Subsection 2, any breach of duty which without an intent to deceive gains an advantage of the person committing it or anyone claiming under him by misleading another to his prejudice or to the prejudice of anyone claiming under him. Subsection 3, causing however innocently a party to any agreement to make a mistake as to the substance of the thing which is the subject of the agreement. Under Section 20 provides for agreement void where both the parties are under a mistake as to matter of fact. When both the parties to an agreement are under a mistake as to a matter of fact essential to the agreement is void. Section 21 provides for effect of mistakes as to the law. A contract is not voidable because it was caused by a mistake as to any law in force in India, but a mistake as to a law not in force in India has the same effect as a mistake of fact. Section 22 provides for contract caused by mistake of any party as to a matter of fact. A contract is not voidable merely because it was caused by any one of the parties to it being under a mistake as to a matter of fact. Next is competent to contract. Section 11 provides for who are competent to contract. Every person is competent to contract who is of the age of majority according to the law to which he is subject. In India, it is the Indian Majority Act 1875 who provides for the age of majority and who is of sound mind and is not disqualified from contracting by any law to which he is subject. Section 12 provides for what is sound mind. What is a sound mind for the purpose of contracting? A person is said to be of sound mind for the purpose of making a contract if, at the time when he makes it, he is capable of understanding it and of forming a rational judgment as to its effect upon his interest. A person who is usually of unsound mind but occasionally of sound mind may make a contract when he is of sound mind. A person who is usually of sound mind but occasionally of unsound mind may not make a contract when he is of unsound mind. Section 68 provides for claim for necessaries supplied to person incapable of contracting or on his account. If a person incapable of entering into contract or anyone whom he is legally bound to support is supplied by another person with necessaries suited to his condition in life, the person who has furnished such supplies is entitled to be reimbursed from the property of such incapable person. Next is for a lawful consideration and with a lawful object. Section 23 states that when what consideration and objects are lawful and what are not. The consideration or object of an agreement is lawful unless it is forbidden by law as provided under Section 26, 27, 28 and 30 of the Act, or is of such nature that if permitted would defeat the provisions of any law, or is fraudulent, or involves or implies injury to the person or property of another, or the court regards it as immoral or opposed to public policy. In each of these cases, the consideration or object of an agreement is said to be unlawful. Every agreement of which the object or consideration is unlawful is void. Section 26 provides for agreement in restraint of marriage, void. Every agreement in restraint of the marriage of any person is void other than a minor is every agreement in restraint of marriage of any person other than a minor is void. Section 27 agreement in restraint of trade, void. Every agreement by which anyone is restrained from exercising a lawful profession, trade or business of any kind is to that extent void. Section 28 provides for agreement in restraint of legal proceedings, void. Every agreement, clause A, by which any party thereto is restricted absolutely from enforcing his rights under or in respect of any contract by the usual legal proceedings in ordinary tribunals, or which limits the time within which he may thus enforce his rights, or clause B, which extinguishes the rights of any person thereto or discharges any party thereto from any liability under or in respect of any contract on the expiry of specified period so as to restrict any party from enforcing his right is void to that extent. Section 30 provides for agreement by way of wager, void. Agreements by way of wager are void and no suit shall be brought for recovering anything alleged to be won by any wager or entrusted to any person to abide the result of any game or other uncertain event on which any wager is made and not hereby expressly declared to be void. Section 24 to 30 states some agreements that are void. Section 24 states agreements void if consideration and an object unlawful in part, if any part of a single consideration for one or more objects or any one or any part of any one of the several considerations for a single object is unlawful, the agreement is void. Section 25 provides for agreement without consideration. void unless it is in writing and registered, or is a promise to compensate for something done, or is a promise to pay a debt barred by limitation. An agreement made without consideration is void unless, subsection 1, it is expressed in writing and registered under the law for the time being in force for the registration of documents, and is made on account of natural love and affection between parties standing in a near relation to each other, or unless, subsection 2, it is a promise to compensate wholly or in part a person who has already voluntarily done something for the promiser, or something which the promiser was legally compellable to do, or unless, subsection 3, it is a promise made in writing and by the person to be charged therein, or by his agent generally or specially authorized in that behalf, to pay wholly or in part debt of which the creditor might have enforced payment but for the law for the limitation of suits. Section 26, 27, 28 and 30 have already been discussed. Section 29 deals with agreement void for uncertainty. Agreements the meaning of which is not certain or capable of being made certain are void. So these are all the relevant sections which are necessary to understand and have an idea of the concept, which says that what agreements are contracts. Well, with this, I conclude this video. In the next video, we'll be discussing the concept of consideration. Thank you.